Hey guys, it's Jane. Welcome back to Mystery Monday. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Attica Locke's newest novel, Pleasantville. Among other things, this is shortlisted for the Gold Dagger this year for the best crime novel. Attica Locke is a young African-American author. Outside of writing books, she has worked for many years as a screenwriter, and that really shows plotting is a real strength and building atmosphere. These are really enjoyable reads, and there's always more going on than just the mystery at hand. After reading her first 3 books, I now think that I'd pretty much read anything that she put her name on. She is that good. So in Pleasantville, we return to Jay Porter, who is the central character in her first book, Blackwater Rising. Before I go any further, though, I have to say that this, although being in some senses a sequel, works perfectly well as a standalone. I do not think you need to read Blackwater Rising before reading Pleasantville, although Blackwater Rising is also a corker. So if you're the kind of person that gets thingy about this, I just say go get Blackwater Rising and read that one first. But you do not need to. Well, the title of the book comes from an area in Houston, Texas, and this is a real life area of the town. It's a planned community. It was the first of its kind in the United States that was developed specifically for wealthy Black people. Over time, an amazing amount of community structure and culture grew up in Pleasantville. The 90s, when this story is set, is a time of change in Pleasantville. There are now more options available for upwardly mobile Black families. And Pleasantville is finding it more and more difficult to maintain its cultural integrity. People who in previous decades would naturally have gravitated to living in Pleasantville are actually finding other places to live. And on the other hand, people from other communities and slightly less well-off folk are inching their way into Pleasantville. And this is a time that's a little bit uncomfortable for the old guard of Pleasantville, and that's a lot of the meat of the story is wrapped up in that. Jay Porter, the hero, is an attorney, and in Blackwater Rising we met him at a very crucial point at the beginning of his legal career. He's married and his wife is pregnant with their first child, and in his own mind, at any rate, he's failing to provide for his growing family. Feels quite strongly that he's married above himself and thinks that he's about to let the team down in a fairly major way. And the dynamic in their relationship is a really important part of what's going on in Blackwater Rising. In Pleasantville, a completely different situation in that family obtains. Jay's wife, the love of his life and mother of his children, has died about 12 months before our story opens. The grief that has struck him has almost destroyed him. If it weren't for his children and his need to keep a sense of normalcy and keep things just turning over for them, it looks very much as though Jay might have just shut up shop and punched his ticket out of there. The third major ingredient that goes to making up this story, along with the setting of Pleasantville and the family dynamic in Jay Porter's family, is electoral politics. The story opens on election night, and it's following a young woman who had spent the day out canvassing in Pleasantville. Something untoward happens to her at the end of this first scene, and her discovery as a missing person the next day is what gets the story rolling. The particular campaign that we follow is the mayoral campaign. I initially found this all a little bit difficult to follow because elections work quite differently in Australia, where I'm from, than what it sounds like is going on in this book. Although it was election night, that's not the end of the campaign, because as far as the election for mayor goes, election night is almost the beginning of the major campaigning, because they have runoff elections and stuff like that. So Although one vote has happened, the final vote has not happened. All of the running in this story is about what is going on behind the scenes in a number of different candidates' campaigns for mayor. And the short version of what's going on behind the scenes in those campaigns is it is not pretty. The main campaign that we follow is Axel Hawthorne's candidacy for mayor. Axel is a favourite son of Pleasantville, and he is running to see if he can become the first black mayor of Houston. Axel was at one time the chief of police, but he is no longer. And one of the other people that he's running against is the district attorney. So there's a bit of argy-bargy goes on when this girl is discovered missing. We have the district attorney who is running. We have somebody who has deep connections with the police force who is running. And it seems as though she was part of one of the campaigns, but it's not entirely clear whose. Axel, however, is not the central character, even in his own campaign, which is one of the really interesting things about this story. His nephew is his campaign manager, and the nephew soon finds himself in hot water with the police, and that's where Jay Porter comes in. Jay initially lucks into being in the police station at the time when they're interviewing this nephew, and just steps up because he thinks that something dodgy is going on. Just in a stopgap manner, talks himself into the interview room so that this guy has some legal defense at the time. Then he goes to court and he thinks that he's defending this nephew over some small administrative rubbish charge that the police have filed against him in order to save face for the fact that they were holding him for as long as they did. But once in the courtroom, we discover that actually there were different charges that have been laid, and Jay is pretty much snookered into a position where he's defending a client in a kind of case that he has not got the background to do. The other really important character in the campaign is Axel's father, who is the elder statesman of the community of Pleasantville and is the guy who's behind the scenes been pulling the strings there for a long time. And our relationship to that character throughout the book is a real roller coaster. It's very difficult to know throughout most of the running of the book if this is a good guy or a bad guy, whether our sympathy should be with him or against him. And that really keeps things off balance throughout the story. This is a truly excellent book. It's a page turner, but it's much, much more than that. There's so many interesting things being said about disillusionment, about grief, about the reality of politics, about how churches are connected with communities, because the role of the churches in the political process in Pleasantville is really eye-opening. Also, just the mystery itself is really tightly written, and we really get behind Jay when he finally turns the corner, comes back to life because he doesn't really have any choice. He needs to fight to get out of this situation. It's really a thrilling read. Anyway, that's all I've got to say today about Pleasantville. It's a fantastic read and I can't recommend it more highly. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!